And welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me is John Slick Levengood.
Oh, let me tell you, there was so much slick in this movie, I feel rough by comparison.
I just love that scene where Mel Gibson calls Michelle Pfeiffer slick. And she comes back at him and like, yo, she's like, you never ever call me slick again.
Which, right, she did not like that. But what's funny is that when we jot down our notes as we watch and prepare for our movie discussions, I think that I wrote the word slick about 3 other characters before that scene came up.
Oh, listen, this is according to what the creators wanted, this movie is talky, it's brooding, it's sophisticated, it's seductive, it's sexy, it's intelligent, it's incomprehensible, according to one of the main producer, which makes me laugh. But yeah, I mean, this is a stylish, good-looking movie, and the hair on Kurt Russell, and his pinky ring, and his gold watch. I mean, those actually go with the warm tones of this movie. I mean, the production design, costume design is beautiful. But yeah, this is you know what, John, you're right. This is a slick-looking production. Absolutely.
It's funny. So watching this, I'm going to say something about a Kurt Russell movie, and I need to give the disclaimer that I mean what I say in the kindest way. Normally, I would say something like this in a negative way, but this movie is in fact in many ways a bit forgettable. Like, as I was rewatching it a couple times this year, and I know I probably saw it twice, maybe, up to the year 2005, I didn't remember anything about it except that there was something about a ping pong game with a criminal. That's all I remembered. And otherwise it follows the typical axioms of a kind of slick, not too gritty, but pretty pithy, like 80s, cop movie. It's just that this one is much more manicured and a bit more clever and a bit more thoughtful, and it has more characters that are strong characters than most of those surrounding it in like 5 years in either direction. So this is maybe one of the best of its kind, but at the same time, this kind of movie is a little bit forgettable. And I would not put this in the ranks of like a Lethal Weapon. Lethal Weapon is what really, I think, cracked out. Although this definitely has all the saxophone music like Lethal Weapon.
Oh my gosh. I wish you get a call and you're Mr. Saxophone, right? You were second runner up for Lost Boys. I mean, you were almost that. And then you get this call and like, hey, we're making this movie, Tequila Sunrise. Big film. The guy who wrote it, Robert Towne, won an Oscar for Chinatown. The guy who's shooting it, Conrad Hall, is a 10-time Academy Award nominee for cinematography. The costume design, she's been nominated twice for Oscars. Production design, twice nominated. This is a prestige picture. We need you to come in here, John, Saxophone John, and we need you to class up this picture with your saxophone licks. You will be in the studio for at least 7 months. Recording all the saxophone bits in this movie. It's sax heavy.
It is, but I think that I don't know if I have the years right. So this came out in 1988. When Lethal Weapon 1 was 87 or 88?
87.
So if they just watch Lethal Weapon 1 like 3 times in a day, I think they'll get a good beat on when to use the saxophone. Because I think Lethal Weapon was lethal in its saxophone use.
Oh, lethal, yeah, the score. Like, I wish there was a thing like lethal saxophone. I mean, saxophones had a good run, John. 85, 86, like 80 Lost Boys, and then Lethal Weapon, and this. At the 25-minute mark of this movie, there is a sax lick that I could have retired on. Like, I would be out with people, like, oh yeah, hey, I worked on the Academy Award winning score for Amadeus. What did you do? Yeah, Tequila Sunrise, saxophone. Like, jaws would drop, right? Italian food would go flying everywhere, because I don't know why, but just that restaurant's beautiful. And people would just be, okay, cool, I get it, makes sense.
Like a bowl of angel hair gets thrown against the wall and just like slides down like an octopus.
You want to hear something crazy? That restaurant, which was designed by Richard Silbert, who also worked on like Red, Shampoo, he won an Oscar for Dick Tracy, Chinatown. A restaurant in Los Angeles, a rich restaurateur saw the design in that movie, and he bought the layout from the production. So that is such a beautifully designed set with such warm hues, and the way Michelle Pfeiffer's outfits, match, like the very gray beige outfits match the walls, and the gold lighting, warm lights. That became a restaurant in L.A. because someone saw that set and went, I want that. So they bought it.
I could see Patrick Bateman and his corporate cohorts having lunch there.
I mean, that's a good looking set, John. And you're right. This is a classy picture. And for me, it's not so much about like memorable moments. It's more about just the vibe, the tone, the swing set scene during Magic Hour that they just randomly caught. There's a look and feel, a lot of fog in this movie, a lot of steam, lots of foggy rooms. But for me, it's more of like, when you watch a noir movie, and there are very memorable noirs, but you get that tone, that noir tone, like, she came into my office. It was 5 a.m. on a Thursday. Sauntered in like she owned the joint. I was yes, exactly. I was hungover from a late night. My wife was asking for rent, so I slept outside. You get that mood. Like this for me is much more of a mood picture than it is a memorable moment picture.
It is, but but I'm going to come back. It's so interesting how strong even the minor characters are.
Raul Julia's a revelation. Well, actually, he's an Oscar nominee winner, amazing actor, but I love him in this movie.
But so the restaurant staff, right? Arturo, who I'll be fine. I got good hands, and then he gets a DUI and everything with him. But that could have been phoned in with any crap actor, and it's really just the device of what's happening and how they're manipulating the legal system. And these minor characters were very strong and very powerfully delivered. Like they felt like her family. Like you got the sense that this is her family, really. And it's not important to the movie, though, for that to happen. You just tell us this is her restaurant, and you see that she's running it, and kind of the director and writer did their job. This is swung out of the park.
Yeah, when she's tired at work, her boss comes up to her and is like, hey, you need to go home. And it's not like he's being, he puts his arm around her. It's more of like a brother-sister, uncle kind of thing, like looking out for these people. And also, I love the characterization of Raul Julia. I love his speech. I know I'm not saying there's too many memorable moments, but this movie sort of washes over you. But when he's talking to Gibson about, like the way your feelings are, like is like blaming a compass for pointing north, and he could have been this over the top, murderous, stereotypical drug lord, but instead he's just opera singing, which they had him do on the fly because they heard him singing off screen, so they just had him singing, ping pong playing.
Yeah, that singing was a great characteristic of that role as well.
And this whole speech about family and
he could have broken into the mamushka.
Yeah.
any moment there.
His whole speech though about family and friends, and it's just refreshing to see a non-stereotypical drug czar. And I will say though that I love what they're going. So this is really interesting. I during my research I learned that they had this movie. The director made a movie called Personal Best, but he was removed during the editing bay. During that deal, Warner Brothers said, we will give you $1 million for a script that you turn in. So he actually went and helped write a movie called Frantic, but during that time, he wrote Tequila Sunrise. Studio loved it. They had Harrison Ford on board. Hey, that rhymes. I love it. And then 2 months before they shot, Harrison Ford dropped out. And then the studio was like, well, hey, can you make the drug dealer bad and the cop good? He's like, no, like the drug dealer's honest, the cop is dishonest, but they're both areas of gray. And they're like, nah, we're not going to do it. So then the producer goes, okay, give us $23 million, drop us down from $33 million. We'll lose $10 million. Let us be an independent movie and we'll make it. And what's interesting, they couldn't find an actor for Kurt Russell. So the director worked with Kurt Russell on Swing Shift. He wrote this with him in mind, Kurt Russell. But Kurt Russell was busy working on other movies. So he couldn't do it. So then they brought in other actors. No one else wanted to be Nick Fresia because he loses. He loses the girl. Mel Gibson gets the girl. Not a lot. It's really interesting, man. A lot of actors, the producer said, did not want to do this because they didn't want to play second fiddle to Mel Gibson. And during an interview I was watching with Kurt Russell, this woman was like, hey, you're acting with Kurt Russell. Were you intimidated? Kurt Russell's been acting since the 50s. And so he's been around long before Mel Gibson was around. I know Mel Gibson has that certain wild card energy. But Kurt Russell goes, no, like I'm an actor. I'm a good actor. I've been doing this since the 50s. But I thought that was really interesting, man. And it's just such an interesting backstory of how this movie was made. I love the dynamics between these two. But the weakest thing, I don't know if you think about this, but Mel Gibson, he's really able to find a heart with this drug dealer, Dale. But he's just so like, this is a guy who's been helping cocaine come to the United States for many, many years. He's probably helped many ODs. He's just he's not a good dude. But in this movie, they're like, he's the honest one. I don't know. But I understand the theme of it. But I would say the weakest part for me is even though I understand the idea of it and why they did it, it's just his character. It's like, this dude would not be that. I don't know. I'm not saying drug dealers can't be nice. And I don't know. I just never read his character as like real because he seems almost saint-like to a certain regard. Not saint-like, but I don't know. That's the only thing that read false to me about this movie is that Mel Gibson's character represented more of an idea than an actual character, even though he's excellent in it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you felt that way.
I never thought, as you're saying it, it seems like very obvious to me now. But I guess because the movie, other than that, like, I don't know what to call it, faux drug bust in the beginning, drugs are never really in front of us. Mm-hmm. So I don't think about it. We don't see, a bunch of people with guns meeting with briefcases with, again, except
this
for
isn't Scarface.
Right. This isn't like a movie. This never feels about a movie. It doesn't feel like a movie that's about a deal that's going down, even though it is. Because this movie is really so much more just about the meetup being the focus that I guess it's like I just treat it as it's about trying to catch a criminal using another criminal.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's just not in the forefront. I'm used to seeing stakes. I'm used to seeing, naked people in some like drug den packaging cocaine with people with, AK-47s walking around, under these like, black lights. I'm used to people with guns in rooms with other people with guns, worried that someone's going to get a hair trigger or get nervous and someone will get killed. So the stakes in this are not until the very, very end, right? And that actually was more a happenstance of just a major moral disagreement between friends, I guess. Yeah. But death never feels like a stake. And we're never presented with people using drugs really, and dealing drugs really. So and now that I'm saying it, it's such a weird angle for a movie that's all about, these drug dealers and this big bust.
It's like what happens if if the guy just got off everything and like if the dude in Blow was able to retire, that's what this movie would be like. And listen, I also know that they originally wanted Mel Gibson to die in this movie because he's just some pawn in the middle of it who gets killed. And they had to reshoot that beach scene at the end to bring him back alive. That's why they tacked that on. Listen, I don't need, a lot of people are like, somebody better die to make us feel emotional stakes. I don't really care that much if people die. I'd rather not have a character I like die because I just enjoy the movie. But they wanted him to live at the end of this. So it's just, I guess they didn't need him dying. But I don't know. It just never feels earned at the end because it was obviously tacked on and not written.
I mean, I like the death that we were given, right?
Yeah.
When he turns the gun on Raul Julia, defending himself, the future. Right? And he's bleeding out, and they're still kind of having a frustrated friends moment, even as he's bleeding out, right? Like, shut up! I feel sick. No, leave me alone. Like, goddamn, So it's like even though they're driven to try to kill each other for their other interests, right? Their bigger picture interests. They still care tremendously for each other. So even if Mel Gibson doesn't die, he had a tragic loss anyway. Sure, we're going to very quickly pivot our attention to him with Michelle Pfeiffer and some more saxophone music and, what a happy ending, I suppose.